I was betrayed by the woman I loved and the brother I trusted. They tried to take my freedom, my reputation, my home, but in the end they exposed themselves instead. My name is Alaric Whitmore, and until 2 years ago I believed I had the kind of life people envied. A restored Victorian house in Vermont, a growing real estate portfolio, a loyal golden retriever named Jasper, and a woman I thought would become my wife. Her name was Seraphina Vale, a name as rare and captivating as the way she walked into my life, all sharp smiles and soft apologies, telling me she had just moved from Oregon to escape a painful past. I met her at a charity auction in Burlington. She spilled red wine on my cuff, laughed nervously, and insisted on paying for the cleaning. That was the first hook she set, and I never saw the line tighten around my neck. Seraphina said she admired how I built everything from scratch after my father died, how I took over Whitmore Holdings at 26 when most men my age were still figuring out rent. She listened when I spoke about zoning battles, renovation budgets, late nights negotiating with contractors. She made me feel seen, respected, needed, and for a man who had grown up proving himself to a cold mother and a distant older brother, that attention was intoxicating. My brother Callum Whitmore had always resented me. He said I was the favorite, even though he inherited our father's political connections while I inherited debt and a crumbling warehouse. But when Seraphina and Callum met at a family dinner, something flickered between them. Not attraction exactly, something more strategic, like two chess players recognizing each other across the board. I ignored it. Love makes you dismiss what should terrify you. 6 months into our relationship, Seraphina moved into my house. She said her apartment lease ended unexpectedly. Her landlord sold the building. She cried into my chest and asked if we could make it official. And I handed her a key without hesitation, thinking I was building a future, not inviting a storm. Then the accusation came. It was a Tuesday morning when 2 detectives knocked on my door, their faces unreadable, their tone rehearsed. They said Seraphina had filed a report claiming I assaulted her after an argument, that I forced myself on her when she threatened to leave. My ears rang so loudly I barely heard the rest. I kept repeating there must be some mistake. She lives here. We were fine last night. She kissed me before bed. But she had already left the house, her closet empty, her number disconnected, her social media scrubbed clean, as if she had rehearsed her disappearance long before the accusation. The news spread fast in a small state like Vermont. Local blogs ran headlines about the real estate heir under investigation. Investors called my office demanding answers. Tenants threatened to withhold rent, and Callum, my own brother, publicly stated that the company would be safer under his leadership while I handled my legal issues. He said it with practiced sympathy, like he had been waiting for this moment. I was suspended from the board within a week. The worst part was not the detectives, not the lawyers, not even the whispers when I walked into a grocery store. It was my mother, Eloan Whitmore, who refused to meet my eyes, who said maybe this was karma for being too ambitious, too proud. She told me to settle quietly, to avoid dragging the family name through court, and that was when I realized I was alone. Except I was not completely alone. My attorney, a relentless woman named Maris Holloway, believed me from the start. She said false accusations often unravel under pressure, especially when there is money involved, and she started digging into Seraphina's past. What she found turned my heartbreak into something colder, sharper, more dangerous. Seraphina Vale was not her real name. Her birth name was Lydia Crow. She had a history of relationships with wealthy men across 3 states, each ending in restraining orders, settlements, or sudden relocations, and in 2 cases, property transfers that left her with partial ownership of high-value assets. She never stayed long enough to be exposed, until now. But the twist that nearly destroyed me was Callum's bank records. Maris discovered a series of transfers from a shell company tied to my brother into an account that once belonged to Lydia Crow. The payments began 3 months before Seraphina met me at that charity auction, which meant their connection was not accidental, it was orchestrated. My own brother had hired a woman to infiltrate my life, to seduce me, to accuse me, to push me out of my own company so he could take control. The plan was simple and ruthless. Seraphina would claim assault, leverage public sympathy, file a civil suit, freeze my assets, and during the chaos Callum would position himself as the stable alternative to lead Whitmore Holdings. And once I was cornered, they would offer a settlement in exchange for partial property rights, specifically the Victorian house and 2 commercial buildings downtown. They underestimated one thing: I was not the reckless younger brother anymore. We countered quietly. Maris advised me not to confront Callum, not to react emotionally. Instead, we gathered everything: financial trails, Old police reports, recorded phone calls between Lydia and Callum discussing Phase 2. And the final blow came when we discovered Lydia had fabricated medical evidence. The clinic she cited had no record of her visit. When the case finally went to court, the prosecution's confidence cracked under cross-examination. Inconsistencies piled up, timelines shifted, and then Maris presented the bank transfers, the shell company, the recorded call where Callum promised Lydia a percentage of my properties once I was neutralized. The courtroom went silent in a way that felt almost sacred. The charges against me were dropped. But I was not finished. I filed a civil lawsuit against both of them for defamation, conspiracy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Investors who once distanced themselves returned cautiously, realizing they had backed the wrong brother, and my mother, when faced with evidence, tried to apologize, but some betrayals do not dissolve with tears. Callum's political aspirations collapsed overnight. Headlines shifted from my alleged crime to his calculated scheme. Lydia Crow, or Seraphina Vale, disappeared again, but this time with warrants attached to her name, her pattern finally catching up to her. The revenge was not loud. It was precise. I bought out Callum's remaining shares at a fraction of their value when he became desperate for legal defense funds. I restructured Whitmore Holdings with stricter oversight, and I sold the Victorian house voluntarily, not because they almost took it from me, but because I refused to let it remain a monument to deception. Heartbreak does not vanish when justice arrives. Some nights I still replay the first time Seraphina smiled at me, wondering which parts were performance and which parts, if any, were real, but I no longer crave answers from ghosts. I moved to a quieter town along the Maine coast, started smaller projects, focused on restoring old buildings instead of chasing expansion. Jasper still sleeps at the foot of my bed, and for the first time in years, the silence in my house feels earned, not empty. Some secrets destroy families. Some revenge rebuilds the man they tried to bury, but I am still standing. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more stories.